Please rise for the parading of the colors by the United States Coast Guard, the Pledge of Allegiance, and the invocation by retired Navy Chaplain Rabbi Abraham. Parade the colors.
Arms.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Retire the colors.
Arms.
I am honored and privileged to be here once again with you on this auspicious day, so let us join in prayer. Eternal Father, strong to save, by whose abiding love our lives are blessed, and through whose continuing care we are once again able to come together today, at this time, to commemorate the 75th anniversary of the attack on Pearl Harbor that took place on December 7th, 1941. We ask that you remember those who gave their last full measure of devotion in defense of this great nation, on what President Franklin Delano Roosevelt most appropriately called the Day of Infamy. Bless those who survived the attack, and who are living witnesses this day, and keep them from all harm, as they continue to be an inspiration for all of us who have served or have served in the armed forces of the United States of America. May all who are today actively engaged in the global war on terrorism never forget the lesson these survivors have taught the millions who have come after them. And we must never let our guard down, and we must always remain ever vigilant in our efforts to protect and defend our country, so that we remain a beacon of light to all who seek liberty and justice in this world. O Heavenly Father, we ask that you bestow your special blessing upon all who serve in harm's way at this time. Give them the strength and courage they need to meet the challenges that face them. May they feel your compassion as they work to make this world a safer place for all humankind. Ease the pain of their loneliness, especially at this time of the year, as they fulfill their assigned mission far away from those whom they love and who love them. May they feel your presence in their lives as daily they face both danger and uncertainty in the fulfillment of their duties. Protect them as they tirelessly and unceasingly commit themselves to the completion of the task at hand. We ask your blessings upon all those loved ones who await the return of their warriors who serve so far away from home. Help them maintain the safe and loving homes to which their loved ones will hopefully return. Give those who have been wounded a complete healing, both physically and spiritually. And may those who have given their lives in a last full measure of devotion to this country find eternal rest and everlasting peace at your side. May their loved ones know with certainty that their sacrifice was neither empty nor meaningless. We ask all of this in your most holy name. Amen. Amen.
Please be seated. I'd like to take time to say thank you to the United States Coast Guard and Rabbi Abraham for taking time out of their busy schedule to be here today. At this time, it is my distinct honor to introduce State Representative Tom Murr, a friend to many of us in attendance and a man that understands the importance of serving our country. Representative Murr retired in 2008 from the United States Army, honors his uncle, a Pearl Harbor survivor, Paul Brown, by participating in this memorial service every year and is a member of the December 7th, 1941 Pearl Harbor Remembrance Association. State Representative Murr.
this special day of remembrance. I want to begin by thanking the devoted volunteers who have worked so hard to bring this ceremony to fruition and to keep alive the memory of Pearl Harbor and the survivors of the attack. Before I share my prepared remarks, I just want to recognize my cousin Kevin Brown, who's here. Kevin is the son of Paul Brown, who is a survivor and served aboard the USS Shaw. I also wanted to just tell you a little bit about my connection to Pearl Harbor. My mother grew up in the Lawndale section of Philadelphia, and she's one of 6 children. And her brother, my Uncle Paul Brown, was serving aboard the USS Shaw on December 7th, 1941, the day that the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor. And there is an iconic photo of the front of the Shaw being blown off, literally being blown off, when a Japanese bomb hit the forward powder magazine. And subsequent to that, actually the Shaw was in dry dock at the time, but subsequent to that, the Navy shipyard in Pearl Harbor attached a temporary bow to the front of the Shaw, and the Shaw made it to San Francisco under its own power, which was a big deal because it needed permanent repairs, and the shipyard in Pearl Harbor just wasn't capable or up to the task. So they went to San Francisco for the repairs. But my Uncle Paul was missing for several days, for several weeks, well into 1942. And my mother's family in Lawndale were hoping for the best, but were kind of preparing to hear from the Red Cross that he had been killed at Pearl Harbor. And so he was missing, my Uncle Paul. And so when the USS Shaw came into San Francisco Bay under its own power, as I mentioned, it was a big deal. And all the sailors were on the front of the ship waving to the television crew. And the clip was shown at a movie house where my mother lived in Lawncrest. The name of the movies was the Crest Movies. And they used to show these black and white clips about updates about the war and so forth. And my mother, thinking her brother was probably dead, saw this clip on Sunday afternoon at a matinee. And she cried out, screamed, and they turned on the house lights, and they gave my mother, they said, "What's the matter?" My mother said, "That's my brother. We thought he was dead. Here he is in San Francisco." And they were able to make contact with my Uncle Paul through the Red Cross and find out that he was indeed alive, and that he survived the attack and went on to serve in the Navy for several years until I think 1946 or 47. And we still have the picture. Our family has the picture. I'm not sure where it is, but I've seen the picture of my Uncle Paul waving from the ship as it streamed into San Francisco Bay. And that's kind of my family's connection. And it's great to be here with my Uncle Paul's son, my cousin Kevin, today. Today we honor the men and women whose sacrifice and bravery made it possible for us to gather here in peace. Today's celebration is a fitting tribute, both strong and enduring, like the men and women we honor here today. The attack on Pearl Harbor started a challenging, painful, yet heroic time in the life of our nation. An entire generation of American men and women demonstrated the finest qualities of our nation, and today, in their honor, we remember them and thank them for what they gave for our nation and for freedom around the world. My Uncle Paul Brown, who served aboard the USS Shaw, was at Pearl Harbor when the Japanese attacked, always reminded people who were interested and wanted to hear that as bad as the attack on Pearl Harbor was, it was not nearly as devastating as the battles at Guadalcanal, Iwo Jima, and some of the other battles we were to face in the South Pacific. To historians, the Second World War is a collection of battles that started Pearl Harbor, moved to the shores of Normandy, through the forests of Germany, across the beaches of Iwo Jima, and onto the deck of the USS Missouri. What we forget is how uncertain the outcome was on that bloody Sunday morning in Hawaii in 1941 when the Japanese attacked our forces at Pearl Harbor. The men and women we honor today freed the world and preserved America's liberty. In all, more than 16 million Americans would put on the uniform of the soldier, the sailor, the airman, the Marine, the Coast Guardsman, or the Merchant Marine. The Americans we honor today fought fiercely and kept their honor under the most worst of conditions. They're remembered by their children and their grandchildren as modest and unassuming. They were not warriors by nature. They just wanted to do their duty and return home to their loved ones. Today we thank them for their bravery and their sacrifice. God bless you, and God bless America, and God bless the men and women who defend our nation. Thank you. I have a certificate of recognition which I'm going to give to Sherry Jones on behalf of the Pearl Harbor Survivors Association.
Thank you, Representative Murphy. I know Alex will be thrilled to see that when he returns. Today's guest speaker may not be a Pearl Harbor survivor, but he certainly knows and appreciates the importance of honoring the men and women who survived this horrific attack and keep history alive. Colonel Kenneth Dutroux is a native Philadelphian, graduated from Cardinal Doherty and Temple University. He was commissioned as a second lieutenant in 1988 and has served for over 28 years. The handout I gave you is his complete bio. I take a moment to read it. It's very impressive, and I'm sure he'll be the speaker we need today. Colonel Dutroux.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for inviting me today. Representative Mert, distinguished guests, friends and family, appreciate the opportunity to come here today to speak, and thank you for a very kind introduction, Sherry. I'm truly honored to be here today to remember and pay tribute and homage to both the survivors as well as those souls who paid the ultimate sacrifice in defense of our nation on this 75th anniversary of the bombing of Pearl Harbor. I've had the honor and the privilege to serve our country on active duty for the last 28 years. The honor and privilege to command infantry units, leading a platoon in Panama, a company in Desert Storm, fighting 2nd Battalion, 8th Marines in Iraq, and leading an 8th Marine Regiment from 2012 to 2015. I've had the honor and the privilege to lead some of the finest young Marines and sailors our country has to offer, both in combat and in peacetime. But through it all, I've never fooled myself. I was never alone, and we were never alone, because we knew we stood on the shoulders of giants. The shoulders of those generations that have gone before us, especially the men and women we honor here and remember today. The men and women who were dutifully serving their country on the island of Oahu on a peaceful Sunday morning of December 7th, only to have that peace shattered by an attack of on the Pacific Fleet moored in the harbor by the Empire of Japan. Whether it be legend or true, it's said that Admiral Yamamoto stated, "I fear all we have done is to awaken a sleeping giant and fill him with a terrible resolve." In retrospect, and as students of history, I don't think I could agree with Yamamoto more. In FDR's famous speech on 8 December following the attack on Pearl Harbor, and prior to his official request to Congress for a declaration of war, he declared, "With confidence in our armed forces, with the unbending determination of our people, we will gain the inevitable triumph. So help us God." The service, sacrifice, and heroic actions that day triggered and illuminated the fighting spirit of an entire generation. A generation which would become known as the greatest generation. Brokaw, in his famous book by the same title, argued that these men and women fought not for fame and recognition, but because it was simply the right thing to do. In 1998, when I was stationed in Hawaii with the 1st Battalion, 3rd Marines, I had the privilege of meeting then Lieutenant John Finn, who was a Chief Petty Officer in 1941 and was stationed at the very base we met at in Kaneohe Bay on the windward side. If anybody's familiar with the island of Oahu, Kaneohe Bay sits about 30 miles east of Pearl Harbor. that was attacked. The Naval Air Station was attacked that day as well. An excerpt from then Chief Petty Officer Finn's Medal of Honor citation stated, "He promptly secured and manned a 50 caliber machine gun mounted on an instruction stand in a completely exposed section of the parking ramp, which was under heavy enemy machine gun strafing fire. Although painfully wounded many times, he continued to man this gun and return the enemy's fire vigorously and with telling effect throughout the enemy strafing and bombing attacks and with complete disregard for his own personal safety." This was one of only many heroic and courageous acts on that day. 10 years later, when called a hero during an interview, Finn responded, "That damned hero stuff is a bunch of crap. You got to understand that there's all kinds of heroes among us, but they never get a chance to be in a hero's position like I was." The greatest generation, and I look out into their eyes today, defined character, which may very well be their lasting mark. They taught us, among other things, personal responsibility, humility, loyalty, trust, grit, and perseverance. We have stood on the shoulders of these giants. They provided every generation to follow a sterling example of what right looks like and demonstrated honor, courage, and commitment in action. It's our responsibility to always remember and never ever forget to viciously guard our reputation in their honor, to do the right thing as the finest fighting force the world has ever seen and as the greatest nation on the face of the earth. Thank you, and Semper Fidelis.
Thank you, Colonel. As most of you know, this is our first service without an actual survivor among us. We're fortunate today, though, to have many of the sons, daughters, and a wife, and a granddaughter of survivors who have been members of our association. If you're not aware, Alex Ramsey, who is usually our stalwart survivor, had the gracious opportunity to be in Hawaii today, and he's having a high old time, let me tell you. Needless to say, it's an honor he has earned, and we couldn't be more pleased that he had the opportunity to get there this time. Before we read the list of departed survivors, I'd like to take a moment to ask each one of the sons, daughters, wife, granddaughter to just stand up, tell your connection, and where they were located at the time of the attack. Let's start off with Joe Horanzi.
Hi, I'm Joe Horanzi, and my dad is Alex Horanzi. He was in Schofield Barracks at the time of the attack. He was sleeping with the rest of his troops, and he got woken up by gunfire, or say, aircraft fire. At that time, they were scrambling for ammunition. They didn't have anything except for some guns, but the heavy ammunition was located in bunkers. So when those guys were going to the bunkers to try to get the ammunition, they were getting shot at by the Japanese. But the Japanese really saved their ammunition for Wheeler Field because all the aircraft were out. It was just like shooting ducks. And then, of course, they went to Pearl Harbor. And as today, when he talks about it, at times he still gets emotional. He rips me up too because it's very sad. But like Sherry said, he's in Pearl Harbor now. He's having the time of his life. But I'm sure, because he was at Schofield Barracks, Wheeler Field, and he just came back from the Punch Bowl, and I bet that was pretty heart-wrenching. But he's having a great time. My family and I had reservations for him going out because, you know, the long air time. But he had a great time. The pilot from Philadelphia, when they brought him to LA, the pilot had a great conversation. You put him over the speaker, everybody's clapping. So he feels excellent. So. And we're dying for him to get home to hear all his stories. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Mike Train.
Mike Train. My father was Robert Eugene Train. He was a 19-year-old radioman stationed on board the USS Honolulu on December 7th. The Honolulu happened to be Admiral Kimmel's flagship. So I found out my dad died when I was 13 months old. So all of my memories were memories that were given to me by men who served with him. I met them at various reunions. And one of them gave me some radio messages, copies of them. And one of them was, he said, according to him, he was the senior radioman in the shack that day. And he gave my father the order to transmit the message, Air Raid Pearl Harbor, this is not a drill. So that made the hair on the back of my neck stand up. That's my story.
Thanks, Mike. Joe Martin.
My name is Joseph Martin. My father was Robert Barron Martin. He was in the United States Army in the Hawaiian Division. I found out after I joined the Pearl Harbor Association that he was in Schofield Barracks with Alex Aranci. On December the 7th, my father told me that he was in the latrine cleaning up his outfit because he had drawn guard duty in the afternoon. Shortly after 7 o'clock, someone rushed into the latrine and said, yellow alert, yellow alert. And he said, what's a yellow alert? He didn't say it that politely. And somebody said, he said the Japanese are attacking. My father said that he went outside and he could see the airplanes flying over and could see the red symbols on their sides. He told me that all of the ammunition and their arms were locked up, and if the Japanese had wanted to, they could have walked into Pearl Harbor on December 7th.
Thank you, Joe. Mary Ann Hartner.
Hi, everyone. My name is Mary Ann Partner. My grandfather, George D. Frazier, was also at Schofield Barracks on that fateful day with the 24th Division in Tara League, the Hawaiian Division. He didn't really talk about it until we got a little older, but like Joe said, he woke up, went to breakfast, and that morning all this noise, and he thought, oh, we got to go get our guns, but they were locked up. So then he said, oh, I have to get a ticket to get the gun. And then he thought, no, I don't have to do that. But I am also a member of the Sons and Daughters, because what we're doing here today is to remember, like the Colonel said, and also Tom Merck. Thank you for coming. And my grandfather just passed away this year, February 14th, 2016. So I feel it is my responsibility to keep alive the memory of him.
Thank you, Mary Ann. Bob Minger. Or Ray. Take your pick.
My name's Bob Minger. My father was at Fort Allen. You know, when the Japanese came. My uncle was also nearby. I'm not sure, but he was in the Navy, but I'm not sure. His name was Earl Minger. My father's name was C. Ray Minger. His first name was Clarence. He didn't use his first name, but my mother always called him Ray, and she thought his name was like Charles or something, and then she met the family, they started calling him Clarence. Anyway, then he was a pharmacist mate. My mother was up in the mountains with my brother, who was 18 months old, and she thought it was just, you know, bombing practice. And my father was missing like for 2 days. She didn't know if he was alive or not, and my uncle was missing for 3 days, and she didn't know, you know, where they were. But they were trying to get the bodies out of the ship and take care of the wounded and things. And on the third day, my uncle appeared, you know, notifying my mother. And that's my story about my father and my parents and my brother. He was supposed to get up and speak.
Tony Manco?
Well, I'm Tony Manco. My father, Anthony Manco Sr., was a private first class at Fort Shafter in the 53rd Army Intelligence. He really didn't tell many stories about Pearl Harbor. He was walking up, there was a struggle to get guns and all that. But more or less, he was in Hawaii for the rest of the war, including being up on top of Diamond Head, watching for planes. It's very boring work. It was like in the jungle. They had to use mules to take food and things to them. One time I asked him if he was a hero. He said, no, all the heroes are in the punch bowl. He said, they're all in the cemetery. I said, well, Pop's there now. He's my hero. And I was fortunate enough to grow up along with the Pearl Harbor group. My father was a charter member back in the 60s. And I've known men out there on every ship, every station, so many men. You'll hear the list of the deceased soon. I can picture every one of them. And just remember Pearl Harbor. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony. Linda Parkhouse?
Hi, my father, William E. Snow, was a Pearl Harbor survivor from the USS Cummings, DD 365. He was a destroyer in port. I believe they were in there for some repairs. I remember Daddy saying that they basically woke them up. He said that they were able to get out of port. There was a lot of damage around them. Their ship was hit, but not to where they couldn't still get out of port. And I know that he was very proud to say that they sunk a submarine. My mother is still here today. My mother's a Navy nurse. She's 94 years old. Care of the boys from Normandy at Portsmouth, Virginia.
Thank you, Linda. Kevin Brown, I know that Tom may have stolen most of it, but I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you to come up, talk about your dad.
Thank you. My name is Kevin Brown. My father was Paul, rotary machinist, made first class, as my cousin Tom did point out, on the USS Shaw DD 373. In service to our country from 1939 to 1946. Thank you.
At this time, we will now read the roll call of the deceased members of our organization. Please bear with us. Unfortunately, it's a rather lengthy list. I have 3 speakers, the first of which will be State Representative Mert. Joe, I have you following him, and then Rabbi, you'll finish after that. Thank you.
Pearl Harbor survivors list of deceased members. James Cummings, Schofield Barracks. Cornelius Martinez, USS Castor. Dominic Spaziano, Schofield Barracks. Peter Dolan, USS Tennessee. George Calhoun, Fort Ruger. Paul Puskar, Schofield Barracks. Dale Lyons, Ford Island. Charles Kovacs, Schofield Barracks. William O'Toole, Schofield Barracks. Dorothy Bogdan, USS Solis. Joseph Zimmerman, USS Tucker. John Kevin, Naval Hospital. William Tench, Hickam Field. Raymond Giannetti, Schofield Barracks. Floyd Murray, Fort Shafter. Henry Gregory, Schofield Barracks. John Durchek, USS Reed. Vincent Massey, USS Pennsylvania. James Madden, USS Utah. Grace Lally, USS Solace. James Sweeney, USS Solace. Joseph Hudrick, Wheeler Field. Harold Johnson, USS Detroit. Werner Rauner, Schofield Barracks. Wesley Thompson, USS Whitney. Elmer Routson, USS Honolulu. John Shields, USS Mugford. Leon Solomon, Schofield Barracks. Felix Borowski, Wheeler Field. William Wheatley, USS Farragut. Glenn Plank, USS Cassin. Raymond Reed, Schofield Barracks. Louis Mites, USS St. Louis. Robert Saloff, USS Phoenix. David St. John, USS Ontario. Joseph Kuchar, Schofield Barracks. George King, Schofield Barracks. Charles Heilman, USS Case. Joseph Dionisio, Schofield Barracks. William Fisher, Schofield Barracks. Joseph Chertik, Schofield Barracks. Thomas Rabig, Schofield Barracks. Patrick McGarvey, Hickam Field. Francis Rosenberg, Fort Shafter. Charles Thompson, USS Sumner. John McCormick, United States Navy Mobile Hospital No. 2. George Biggs, Wheeler Field. Chester Sispansky, Schofield Barracks. James Ashcraft, Hickam Field. Cleo Blanchard, Wheeler Field. Raymond Minger, Ford Island. Peter Elmer, USS Honolulu. Richard Levenstein, Wheeler Field. Alexander Sherman, USS New Orleans. Albert Rice, Schofield Barracks. Thomas Kingsley, USS Phoenix. Albert Clan, Schofield Barracks. Next reader, please.
James Campbell, Wheeler Field. Charles Hardy, USS Nevada. Neil Verdi, Camp Malapoli. Antonio Caparatore, Schofield Barracks. Francis Reese, USS Curtis. William Enck, Hickam Field. George Durfer, USS St. Louis. William Welsh, Fort Shafter. Paul Reisig, USS Pyro. Earl Jones, Schofield Barracks. Ted Kamen, Hickam Field. Robert Gagel, Schofield Barracks. Michael Galville, USS Dale. Lawrence Huber, USS Tennessee. Joel Bachner, USS California. Gito DeSimone, Schofield Barracks. Keith Millican, USS Phoenix. Joseph Muir Chakowski, Fort DeRussy. George Mengel, Wheeler Field. George Roth, USS Argonne. Edgar Washington, Hickam Field. Henry Grinn, USS St. Louis. Charles McCullough, Schofield Barracks. Charles Appleton, Hickam Field. Richard Wallen, USS Antares. Roger Lowry, USS Phoenix. John Amendola, Schofield Barracks. Fred Cummings, USS Phoenix. Joseph Wojtunik, Hickam Field. Francis Pearl, Schofield Barracks. William Wydell, Schofield Barracks. John McNeil, USS Reed. John Morgan, USS Phoenix. Ralph Frederick, Wheeler Field. Thomas Sanford, USS Detroit. Theodore Fallon, Marine Barracks, Pearl Harbor. Walter Sable, Hickam Field. Robert Train, USS Honolulu. Kenneth Herndon, USS Nevada. Frank Milneck, USS Ralph Talbot. Anthony Manco, Fort Shafter. Herman Diesel, Hickam Field. Paul W., USS West Virginia. William Elmer, Fort Kamehameha. Fort Kamehameha. Sorry. Robert Rater, USS Dobbins. Reed Burks, Pearl Harbor. Robert Snyder, USS Detroit. Vincent Bonina, Hickam Field. James Barnes, Schofield Barracks. Dominic Gentili, Marine Barracks, Pearl Harbor. John Kelly, USS Sacramento. Walter Marchlowitz, USS Whitney. Lynette Babineau, USS Regal. Charles Calkins, USS Alwyn. Thomas Wendt, USS Regal. Edward Moreno, USS Maryland. Frank Marshall, Schofield Barracks. Thomas Gill, USS Honolulu.
Walter Sabuziak, Hickam Field. James Harrison, Ford Island. Stephen Jordan, USS Dewey. Donald S. Kryson, USS Maryland. William Snow, USS Cummings. Jasper Forbes, USS Cunningham. Paul Brown, USS Shaw. William Brown, Fellows Field. Harvey Volk, USS Vestal. Al Marks, USS Dobbins. Irv Gerben, Noe Bay. Paul Moyer, Schofield Barracks. Ralph Carter, Schofield Barracks. John McElroy, USS Helms. Curry Kimmy, Fort Kamehameha. Jay Smith, USS Phoenix. George Smith, USS Ash. Roland Huffle, USS Argonne. George Fraser, Schofield Barracks. Mario Chirolanza, Wheeler Field. Honorary members: Robert Martin, Hickam Field. Harry Fash, World War II veteran. Philip Antoniello, World War II veteran. Edward Miller. Catherine Horanzi, wife of survivor Alex Horanzi. Mary Rugoy. Robert Knackler. Chuck Leopold. Ray Horanzi, brother of survivor Alex Horanzi. Please stand. Let us once again join in prayer. Our Father, our King, as we prepare to depart these solemn proceedings and reassemble, we ask that you bless all of us. Prosper us in all of our undertakings. Let no evil overtake us. Grant each of us safe passage, so that we will arrive at our desired destinations in safety and peace. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious to you. May the Lord lift up his face to you and grant you peace, now and forevermore. And we say, Amen. Guests, please stay seated as the sons, daughters, and granddaughter of the survivors depart the chapel. Please follow them outside for the 21-gun salute, the laying of the wreath, and the playing of taps. Thank you.